Today we have a fun class lined up for you. It's all about texture shears. So today's class isn't going to be that long, but um, I recently did a class for another salon, and we did a small portion over texture shears, and the people who were online for it just loved it. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Hey, Kathleen. Hello. How are you? Hello, hello. It's just you and I. So in the chat, if you want to let me know that you can hear me and see me okay, that'd be great. I don't know if anyone else will join us. We had a bunch of people register, but then I think everybody realized it's the Monday after the 4th of July, especially the schools, and they may not be open today. So it's no big deal. Again, it'll take a couple seconds. Nice. How's the picture look, Kathleen? How's the sound? How's it sound? Like professional? So I've always wondered, we've been doing these classes for months now, well over a year, and no one's ever complained. So I usually get great positive feedback. So thanks for joining. You're probably going to hear a lot of what you've heard at the shows when I talk about different texture shears, and what I do at shows when I talk about different texture shears. So we'll just do a proper introduction. So I want to welcome everybody to Shark Fin Shear Academy, Shark Fin Shears Academy, if you will. My name is Willy. I'm the Director of Education for Shark Fin Shears. I'm a licensed cosmetologist and barber, and I also work for the company. So I get the pleasure of doing a large majority of our education, along with some other wonderful educators and ambassadors. Today's class is called All About Texture Shears. What happened was, a month or so ago, I did a class upon request for a chain salon, and it was all about texture shears. And they literally wanted to know the difference between our 5 texture shears, what I used them for, what I didn't use them for, and then also show in the hair what each one looks like. So that's the goal for today, is just to talk to you a little bit about each texture shear and tooth count, what I use it for, what else it could be used for, and then literally show you that texture shear in the hair. So you can see the line, you can see the finish of it. So it was a pretty cool class, and I'm glad that we did it, because I think it'll be a good staple of our education over on our YouTube channel. So if you don't currently follow us on Instagram, Shark Fin Shears, all one word. On YouTube, it's Shark Fin Shears, 3 words, Shark Fin Shears on YouTube. And on Facebook, it's Shark Fin Shears Beauty. So if you want some smaller tutorials, swivel versus non-swivel, titanium versus stainless, we have some really rad short education videos over there that you can check out, along with full feature haircuts on our YouTube channel. So whether it's the Oscar, the French crop, or the Delaney, the textured bob, along with several other haircuts. So without further ado, we're just going to kind of jump right into it. So the first shear I'm going to go over is our 40 tooth texturizer. So first thing I want to talk about is, in our industry, I think people use texture shear kind of generically for any shear that has teeth, whether it's 40, 28, 15, or 7, or 60 for that matter. It's just kind of like, oh, a texture shear. So I call this a blending shear. So this is our cobalt blue. It's 40 teeth. There's only teeth on one side, okay? So the cutting blade is nearest the head. The teeth are nearest the stylist, okay? I call this a blending shear. I try to call the shear by the name that I use it for. So blending, right? More teeth. It's going to remove more hair, but it's going to be a seamless line. It's really hard to see any line that's left in the hair from the texturizer. So what I would use this shear for is in short hair, barbering, clipper cuts, blending out any lines that I may have that are left over from if I'm using a guard. If somebody has a ton of hair and I want to remove bulk, but leave the layers connected or not create layers, I would use a 40 tooth. Also, if someone had thin, fine hair, I would use a 40 tooth because it's gonna be the least visual. It's gonna leave the least visual line in the hair when I cut with it. So scissor over comb, it's great. You know, if you have that guest who doesn't like to use clippers, right? They want a little length to the hair. It's a fantastic shear for scissor over comb. So it'll remove bulk and weight, but it'll still leave that texture and movement to the hair that a lot of barber guests, whether they're male or female, he, she, they, or them, doesn't matter, right? They want that movement left in the hair that you don't get with a short clipper or short guards, okay? So what you'll see with this shear, and please, when I say this is what I use it for, I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of other things you can use it for, right? We could go on and on for hours probably with this class, but that's not the point. It's just to kind of give you an idea of how we use it and what the finish looks like. So let's see if I can get this to come through in the video today. So I'm just going to grab the hair. And if you look, when you go in there, you can see that line right above my finger. See how thin and fine that is, or see how, you know, it blends in with the hair. So that's, you know, that's a blending shear, right? So the thing about all texture shears is the more you cut with them, I mean, it can become a cutting shear, right? So let's say you have somebody who has like a long bob or a medium length bob and they want those textured ends, but they don't want to use a razor. Maybe they've had a bad experience with a razor in the past. This is a fantastic shear for that as well, especially if they have fine density or fine textured hair or thin textured hair. I'm sorry, right? So really thin strands and not a lot of density. Okay. So again, if we show this in here, we just put it right into the hair and you'll see, as long as I get my head out of the way, you have a really faint line of distribution that you see in there. Okay. So I'll do a little better job of combing that. And then you can see that line. Even if we go in again, you can see that line in there. All right. So that's the 40 tooth texturizer, or as I call it, the blending shear. Next up, we have our 28 tooth. So literally when I say, you know, 40 teeth, there's 40 teeth. So with this one, there's 28. This is our new shear, that the black and rose gold two-tone. It's fantastic. So what I use this shear for a lot is all of my scissor over comb work. I have a ton of guests in my studio here that they don't like clippers. They don't want it that short. So I do a ton of scissor over comb. So the fantastic thing about this texturizing shear, which is what I call this, you know, if I said a texturizing shear, I'm referring to a 28 tooth. If I said a blending shear, I'm referring to a 40 tooth. All right. So the 28 tooth, fantastic for scissor over comb, shear over comb, and all of my barbering. In those medium textured or medium length bobs, if they want that texture, just, you know, kind of really dispersed look at the ends. If they have medium to thick density hair and thick texture, this is a shear I would use for that, because it's going to remove, it's going to be a little more aggressive. And people who have that thicker density, you don't have to worry about every single, you know, open and close showing up in the ends of the hair, if that makes sense. Okay. So 28 tooth also, if you have a, you know, I used to have a ton of these guests. They come in, they have a ton of hair. You know, I get to the end, I've done a blow dry, and then I start debulking, right? Because they just want to lighten it up. And I'm just debulking. No matter how much hair I take out, the next time they come in, they're just like, Willie, it's just so heavy. It's just so heavy, right? So this would be the shear for that. You part out occipital bone, pull everything up. From here down, you're just going to remove bulk. So it's fantastic, the 28 tooth for that. For people with fine density hair, again, fine textured hair. So the thing with fine textured hair is, you know, every little snip tends to show up in it, right? So you could use a 28 tooth. It's going to be a little more aggressive, you know, part from the occipital up, pull that hair up out of the way, and then everything underneath, that's what you can debulk. And then the rest of that hair is going to fall down over the top of it. So here's the 28 tooth. If I can get a good shot for you, here we go. This will be better. It's always better in a dry mannequin to show this, because in a wet, the hair sticks together. So you see there, that line. So again, the wonderful thing about the 28 is it goes from removing bulk and weight to cutting really quickly. So you can see how in those medium length bobs, if they want it really textured and piecey at the end, but they don't want you to use a razor, it'd be fantastic for that, especially for people with thicker, coarser hair. So you can see the line there. You can see the line just above my finger right through there, okay? So what you're gonna see with each one of these texture shears, you're gonna see that line getting heavier and heavier. And also a wonderful sign, a good way to tell if a texture shear is good quality. You know, for years, when I was out of school, I used to grab hair when I used a texture shear. I would open it, close it, open it back up, and then I would use my comb to comb out the hair. Your texture shear is your comb, right? So we open it, we close it in the hair, and we pull it out, right? If it gets stuck or you feel it pulling hair, you might want to question the quality of it, okay? Especially if it's a new shear. You should be able to put the shear in the hair, open it, close it, and just pull it right out, just like that. No pulling, no, you know, breaking, you know, nothing like that. So that's the 28 tooth. So again, for me, shear over comb, I love it. In my barbering with my guests who have medium to thick density hair and textured hair, I could use this in those long bobs if they don't want us to use a razor to give that very textured, piecey, movie feeling at the bottom. And then also for someone with, you know, medium to thick hair, if I want to remove a ton of bulk and weight, I can go with the 28 tooth, okay? So that's the 28 tooth. All right. Now we're going to start getting pretty aggressive. The 15 tooth. I call this a debulking shear, right? So the reason I'd say that is for that guest who just has a ton of hair, and no matter how much you remove, they always come back in talking about how it's too heavy. So you, again, part from the occipital bone, take and move all that hair out of the way. I'll move my mannequin back here a little bit so you can see. And then, you know, we're going to go in there and get real aggressive. But what I want you to look at is, look at how the hair looks in between there. Like you can literally see the texture. That wasn't very good for you to see there at home or at school or wherever you are. So let's try that again. You literally can see the teeth in between the hair. You can see the space that those teeth are creating when it's moving hair, removing the hair. So look at that space in between, right? So you can see short hair does what to long hair, right? It pushes it. So if you want to create movement inside a long hair without having to do really short layers, it's great at that as well. So short hair pushes long hair. If you want to create movement in long layers without having to take that, you know, those layers super short because your guest doesn't like that look, but they still want that release so they get that movement side to side. This is a fantastic shear for that, okay? Also, I love it for crops. Anytime I'm doing short hair and I want a ton of texture, I love the 15 tooth, whether it's a crop and you're you know, wearing it textured up, whether it's like a textured pompadour where it looks like, you know, someone styled it with their fingers. You have those big pieces of chunks, or a really wide tooth comb. You can finish with the 15 tooth. It's really great at creating that texture and movement in hair, but also it's really great at giving you that you know, really textured look in pompadours, especially at the front. Or right now, you know, shags are huge, you know, kind of textured out mullets, kind of like I have going on, where people just want a ton of creative texture and movement, where they may go in with like a texture paste afterwards and literally piece everything out. You're going to get a ton of texture and movement out of a 15 tooth like this. So I'll show you one more time, because I really want it to come through where you can see how the teeth releases the hair. You know, so often I get asked, well, you know, what's the percentage of hair that it removes? What's the percentage of hair that it removes? I'm more concerned with what's the hair look like that it's leaving behind, right? So, you know, we're creating short inside of long, inside of short, inside of long. So when you go in there, look at that. Like you can see how those teeth leave that. You can see that space in there. So you can see how that short hair in there is really going to make that long hair dance, if that makes sense. So that person who has medium textured hair and they always want all that volume at the crown, this is a fantastic shear for creating that, right? Inside of Oscar here, which is our French crop, if you watch, we do a sectioning pattern called alternating layers. So it's short, long, short, long, short, long purposely. And then you go inside of those layers that are short and long that are already creating texture, and you use a shear like this, and you do short inside of long, inside of short, inside of long. So if that's confusing, it is. But if you pop over to the YouTube channel and watch the Oscar haircut, it'll make a lot more sense. Okay, so debulking shear really is what I call this, but it's amazing at creating texture in all kinds of you know, short, medium, and long hair. The only thing I would steer clear of with that shear is if the person has thin fine hair, okay, because it's really going to create a lot of movement and texture, and you may just be able to visually see where that shear is taking out hair. And then, you know, next I want to talk about our 7-tooth, really our chunking shear. So textured pixies, textured mullets, really textured like shag style pixies or pixie style mullets that you see that are really creative haircuts that are going on. This really is a specialty tool. I've seen people who are really good at with curly hair that twist the hair, you know, that just use the first tooth to cut into that curl, right, to give some release instead of using, you know, a cutting shear. So there's all kinds of other things you can use this shear for. But this is really going to release a lot of hair and movement. So, you know, when you look in here, I mean, you see immediately the hair take the shape. I mean, look at that space in between there, right? So you can see my thumb through there. It's quite amazing. So look, I mean, you can imagine how that's going to release that hair and what kind of movement and texture you're going to get out of something like this. I am not saying you can't use this in long hair, because you can. Anything to create short hair inside of long hair to give that movement, but this is really going to give it that chunky feel, right? So you can see why in those really textured pixies, those really textured crops, those really textured mullets and shags, this would be a really rad shear to use to give you that movement inside of there without losing all the length. So you could have really short inside of really long pieces. It really is a fun shear to learn how to use, you know. And for those of you who are watching this, there are people who can do this. Everything I'm showing you with the texture shear today, there are people who can do all of that. Look at that movement. See that release you get in there? I mean, just look how wide, look how much room's in between the hair there that we're releasing. And it's a real heavy weight line. I mean, let me try one more time to show a little better. But you see, I mean, you can just see how heavy it is. When I say heavy, I mean, you can just see the line inside of the hair. Like, look at that. See that? See how you just hold it in the teeth, you can see the texture and movement you're going to get inside of that. It's really, really cool, right? So for those people who are always like, how much hair does it remove? How much hair does it remove? I focus more on what's it doing to the hair it's leaving behind, right? That's more of my concern. Is not so much as it's removing 40% of the hair, it's removing 50% of the hair, it's removing 60% of the hair. I think those are good things to know in certain situations. But again, if I go back to a 40 tooth, I can't tell you the exact percentage it removes, but I can tell you it removes a ton of hair, because it's going to really blend out those lines in short hair. It's going to keep that connected look in seamless layers, but you can still remove bulk without it going, you know, looking like multiple layers of hair and, you know, and multiple layers in the haircut. All right. So that's the 7-tooth. I think of it more of like a chunking shear. It really is a specialty shear. I'm sure there's a ton of other ways you can use all these texturizers. What's great is we're in a creative industry, so you can really just figure it out on your own. My goal is to just kind of help give you or guide you if you're not familiar with texture shears at all, okay? And then the last shear I want to talk about is a new shear for us. We released it, you know, I guess right before the pandemic, so it's not that new anymore, but in my mind, it's still new because I haven't been out on the road as much, right? And we call it the eraser. And the reason we call it the eraser is it's a double-sided blending shear. So we have teeth and we have teeth, right? So the whole point of this is removing weight and length immediately. So this will do what the 40 tooth will do, but the 40 tooth would take like 5 or 6 passes. This will do it in like 1. Okay. So if you're really looking to get in there aggressively and remove bulk and length and weight all at the same time, this is a fantastic shear for that, right? Also in that short hair, where every now and then with a 40 tooth, you'll see the line. Like I could show you in this hair where you can see the line. This eraser is it's seamless. Let me get some hair. Let's see if I can find some hair on this mannequin that hasn't been cut a ton of times. There we go. There's a good piece. So I don't know if you can see it, but that line is really, really faint. Even more, you know, even more faint than in the 40 tooth. So, you know, in those barber cuts, when I'm cleaning up fades and I really need that line to disappear, like this is what we're using. But it goes really quickly from that into, just like the 40 tooth, it can move directly into a cutting shear where we can remove all that length, but leave that look of texture and movement, right, in the ends, in like those bobs, in those medium length bobs, and those textured bobs, where, you know, we can achieve the look of a razor without having to use a razor. Because a lot of people I've tried to use razors on in the past, they're just not real big fans of it because of something they've heard or something they've read, or they've had a bad experience. So we can still create that look. We can still create that movement. We can still create that those shattered ends without having to use a razor. So again, that's our eraser, double-sided. And the reason we call it an eraser is just like an eraser, you make those lines disappear, right? So that's why we call it the eraser. So just in kind of recapping, right? We have our 40 tooth blending shear, great for scissor over comb, great for blending out lines, great for removing bulk and weight in fine, thin hair. Then we have our 28 tooth. This I personally love for all of my scissor over comb barbering, for my guests who want a little longer hair, but they still want that texture and movement. It's fantastic for medium to thick hair, creating those shattered ends and like bobs, long, medium length bobs, creating that texture and movement inside of these really creative mullets and the shag haircuts, especially inside of fringes, right, to give that curtain and that shattered piecey look. Then we move more into like the specialty shears, the 15 tooth debulking shear, removing bulk and weight from someone who has more hair than you know what to do with, creating texture and movement inside those French crops, right? Those short crops, those barbering crops, but also giving that movement to like a pompadour or a coif, depending on what you call it. It's fantastic for that as well. Creating long or short inside of long, inside of short, to give you that volume and movement you want, whether it's in the crown and longer hair, or that texture and pieciness you want and throughout the top and in a shorter haircut. And then, the 7 tooth, really the chunking shear, more texture than you know what to do with, right? A real specialty tool. And then coming full circle, bringing it back to the eraser, right? The double-sided blending shear, it's going to leave less of a line. It's really going to remove those lines in short hair. It may take 2 or 3 passes with a 40 tooth blending shear. With eraser, it's generally 1 pass and it's gone. And you don't have to worry about seeing teeth marks in that shorter hair. So I really hope that this class has helped you out today. If you are here for the first time, thank you for joining us. It was amazing. If you happen to tune in late, this is a rather short class for the day. We're already wrapping it up. I will do the video editing on this and have it up probably in the next 24 hours on our YouTube channel. If you're interested in having a class for your school or salon, specifically, you know, just your school or just your salon, haircutting, shear education, anything like that, you can email me. My email is Willy, Willy, at sharkfinshears.com. If you have any questions or recommendations for classes that you would like to see us do, you can email me at that same email. So again, I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to join us today. I know today's class is fairly short, but it's not, this is the type of class that doesn't need to be 30 or 45 minutes long. So if you have any questions, feel free to DM us, Sharkfin Shears on Instagram, Sharkfin Shears-Beauty on Facebook, or you can email me. Any questions whatsoever, I'm happy to help. Thank you again for tuning in on the Monday after a holiday. I hope everyone had a happy and safe holiday. And I'll sign off by saying what we always say here at Sharkfin. Remember, it's nice to be nice. Have a great day.